Hi Filipino learners! Kumusta kayo? My name is JC. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to form sentences using actor-focused verbs and object-focused verbs in Filipino. By the way, this is a part 2 of another video. If you haven't seen the first one, please watch it first. I will place the link at the upper right corner of this video and at the description. Okay, to recap, in Tagalog, we have actor-focused verbs and object-focused verbs. When using actor-focused verbs, the subject in the sentence is the one doing the action. And when using object-focused verbs, the subject is the one receiving the action, or the one to whom or to which the action is being done. Let us begin with 5 sentences in English. As you can see, they all have doers of action and receivers of action. Now, when saying all of these sentences in Tagalog, you must use actor-focused verbs. So, I cooked chicken is nagluto ako ng manok. Julia is drinking coffee. Umiinom si Julia ng kape. She bought a hat. Bumili siya ng sombrero. Hannah is driving a car. Nagmamaneho si Hannah ng sasakyan. Edwin is reading a book. Nagbabasa si Edwin ng libro. Why are we using actor-focused verbs? Because we are not being specific when it comes to the receiver of the action. So when are we being specific? I'll show you. Let us use the verb cook again. I cooked the chicken that was in the refrigerator. So now we are being specific because we are stating which chicken exactly that was being cooked. So usually when you use the before the receiver of the action, you are being specific, right? So in Tagalog, if you are being specific with the receiver of the action, you should be using object-focused verbs. Niluto ko ang manok na nasa ref. Okay, let's try the next one. Julia is drinking the coffee that I prepared. Here, I am being specific again. It's not just any coffee that Julia is drinking. It's specifically the one that I prepared. In Tagalog, this will be, iniinom ni Julia ang kape na tinimpla ko. I use an object-focused verb once again. Next, she bought this hat. Binili niya itong sombrero. I am being specific because I used this or itong. It's not just any hat. It's this one in particular, itong sombrero. So when using ito, iyon, iyan, or this, that, these, and those on the receiver of the action, you are being specific. So you should use object-focused verbs. Next one. Hannah is driving your car. Minamaneho ni Hannah ang sasakyan mo. So we're stating exactly which car Hannah is driving. It's not just any car. It's your car in particular. So we used object-focused verbs. Last one. Edwin is reading his new book. Binabasa ni Edwin ang bagong libro niya. So we specified again which book Edwin read. It's his new book, ang bagong libro niya. Therefore, we used object-focused verbs. Now let's take a closer look at the sentences. As you can see, whether I used an actor-focused verb or an object-focused verb, we always begin with the verbs, followed by the doer of the action, and then the receiver of the action. So, I said that when using actor-focused verbs, the doer of the action is the subject, and when using object-focused verbs, the receiver of the action is the subject. But how can you tell if they always follow the same pattern? Verb, doer, and receiver. Well, I have discussed in another video that subject have markers in Tagalog. Si or sina is placed before the subject if they are names of people. And ang is placed before all other subjects, except of course if you're using pronouns. There's no need to use markers for that because you can tell if a pronoun is a subject based on which pronoun you used. Remember, on my video about pronouns, I told you that there are two groups. One used for subjects and the other one out of focus, which are the ones used when the pronouns are not the subject in the sentence. And of course, if we have subject markers, we have object markers as well. Instead of using si or sina, we use ni or nina for names. And instead of using ang, if it's not the subject, you use nang. If you look closely at our examples, we use those markers properly. On my first example, we used ako, a subject pronoun, for I, because we used an actor-focused verb. Therefore, the doer of the action is going to be the subject of the sentence, which is ako, I. But if you look at the other example, I used ko for I this time. Why? Because when using object-focused verbs, the receiver of the action is the subject in the sentence. As you can see, we used ang for manok, a subject marker, so you can tell that in this sentence, the receiver of the action, ang manok, the chicken, is the subject in the sentence. And for the second example, when using the actor-focused verb, we used a subject marker, si, for the doer of the action, Julia. And we used nang for kape, because it is not the subject. But for the other one, when we used the object-focused verb, we used the marker ni for Julia, because this time, Julia is not the subject. It's kape. So we used ang, again, a subject marker to show that ang kape is the subject in this sentence, the receiver of the action, because we used an object-focused verb. So for this one, for bumili, an actor-focused verb, we used siya, a subject pronoun, for she, because the doer of the action should be the subject. And then we use nang for sombrero, because it's not the subject in this sentence. But if you look at the other example where we used the object-focused verb, we used niya for she, because this time, the receiver of the action should be the subject, itong sombrero. By the way, I did not use any markers, any subject markers for itong sombrero. You just have to remember that if you're using demonstratives, like ito, iyon, iyan, or this, that, these, and those. There's no need to use markers. And for our last two examples, you can see that we used si for Hannah and Edwin when using the actor-focused verbs to show that they are the subjects, and nang to the receiver of the action. But when we use the object-focused verbs, we use ni for Hannah and Edwin because they are not the subject this time. And then we used ang for the receivers of the action to show that they are now the subject of these sentences. Well, that's it for today's video. If you like this, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Maraming salamat sa panonood. Sa susunod ulit. Paalam.